I'm curious, how many of you are looking to do a food startup in any capacity or have a startup, just so I get a read of the audience? Can you raise your hands? So about a third. And everybody else, funders or any other parts of the ecosystem that's not a startup founder? No? Okay, cool. Well then, okay, awesome. Can you guys hear me okay? If you guys can, it'd be great if you can slide over. So first and foremost, we wanted to thank the sponsors for this year. It's fantastic that they were able to come in. Can you guys hear me okay? My voice is typically very low, so if you can't hear me, just tell me, hey, you got to speak up. So I was not out last night. This is actually what I sound like. So, but we were a big thanks to Amazon and all the main title sponsors, but primarily for this Founder Track series, it's just been a fantastic. MTM of Denver has just been a fantastic sort of sponsor for the event, for the entire track. So, welcome to Food Startups, Byte. This track is going to take a little bit of a different approach in that typically, I've been a startup founder for over 10 years. I just celebrated 10 years as an entrepreneur last week, which is, thank you. I think if you've been in the struggle, then you know it's real. But 10 years I've celebrated, and it really is an achievement when you get through it. But one idea that we wanted, especially for this conversation, was to look at what startup founding is like when you're not in a technology type startup. And we have two exceptional examples here in Fatima Dickerson from the Walton Street Cafe, which is a phenomenal story, and Blaine Bagao from Adobo Denver. So they're going to share today their perspectives on a range of different topics, challenges, successes, the crying, the the wanting to ball up, and then the elation of actual successes, as you'll see as part of their stories as we unfold that today. So to begin with, one of the big things that, one last piece, because we are recording. Everybody knows you're being recorded, right? You've given us the authority to do that, yes? Okay, cool. If you don't, we cannot mask you on, you will not be blurred. Just sit in the corner. But also, if you guys don't mind, if you guys are capturing anything, please feel free to share on social as well. There's a hashtag DN Startup Week, which would be fantastic if you can hashtag that, that'd be great. So we've introduced our esteemed panelists, and they're fantastic in their own right. I have, full transparency, I've eaten a ton at Walton Street Cafe. I've eaten my fair share in my lifetime, with Blaine is actually a recent arrival, and I have a personal, love and affection for what he's doing because my wife is also Filipina, and he's got an interesting, incredible story to share about his mix of cuisine that he's bringing to Denver with a unique concept. But I'm going to start with you, Fatima, first on this conversation. So, how did the Walton Street Cafe come to be?
Just talking.
You can just hold that up. Chris, can you hear that?
You can hear me?
Okay, good.
Good morning. How are y'all doing? I said I just want to make sure everyone can hear me and I'm not blazing loud. So, Walton Street Cafe is Denver's oldest Black-owned restaurant. We are housed in Denver's historic 5 Points. So I don't know if anybody has kept up on the news lately. Some people might recognize me from Channel 7, 9, 31, Channel 2, Denver Post. Our restaurant is in a transitional space. We became Walton Street Cafe in 1999. And so I was 12 when we moved into Walton Street Cafe. Our restaurant is in a transition. We are building a restaurant on 28th and Walton, and we closed Walton Street Cafe on 27th and Walton, March 12th. And so if anybody's kept up on the media, they have seen all the heartbreak and celebration regarding our story. But my family started the business, my parents started the business in 1986. And so we've been housed in Denver's historic 5 Points. So we've been Walton Street Cafe for 23 years. But yeah, we've had restaurants all throughout 5 Points for the duration of time.
And you've got an interesting philosophy about every day is Monday.
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
So my philosophy is every day is Monday. So if you're going into entrepreneurship, just adopt that mentality. When people are like, oh, it's Friday, you're like, it's another Monday. You know, there's always work to do. But I always look at it as an opportunity to get creative and build, you know, your business. Have fun with what you do. This is something that you're going to be married to. So if you're not ready for marriage to your business,
You may
don't
not
get
want to
into
do
it. Don't do it.
It's like, and where's the family originally from?
My family's originally from St. Thomas. So Welton Street Cafe is has a West Indies influence. So this is our take on a Southern cuisine. A lot of people assume that we're like from the South. I'm like, actually, I didn't grow up eating collard greens and cornbread. I said, my food identity is completely different despite how I look. But yeah, we have a lot of like Caribbean dishes like jerk chicken. We make curry chicken. We have pâtés. But this is our take on the Southern cuisine as West Indies people.
And who was the original founder?
My mom and my dad. So right now we have 6 owners. My parents are still owners. I have myself, my 2 sisters, and a brother.
And the entire family was working in that kitchen?
Not all of them. There's like 1,000 kids. They should all be working in the kitchen somewhere. But when you have a lot of kids, my parents have 6 kids, you have to do something that's going to support the family, you know. And so my dad would always laugh at my mom and say, she could cook, I'm going to make some money out of her. And here she is. Here we are.
Blaine, tell us, how did Adobo Denver come to be? Like your beginnings?
So Adobo, thank you everybody for being here today. Honor and pleasure to be with you for team. So Adobo Denver started whenever just basically I was at rock bottom and I was at the worst part of my life. I just had a divorce, was in a very high pressure investment sales job that I wasn't happy with. I was making more money than I ever had, and I was dealing with the repercussions of a brain injury from a motorcycle wreck. So 2012, I was hit on a motorcycle. Person didn't have their glasses on, they were partying, they were driving home, didn't see me coming, so I went straight through an intersection. They turned left and I hit them head on. Flew 40 feet, they found me down the road and I didn't know who I was for a good period of time, and luckily my memory came back and I kind of started from scratch with my body was broken, my brain was broken, and it was just a very difficult time. And I realized the further I kept going down the road that I thought I wanted to be on, which was working in investment, working in finance, my degrees in finance, banking, accounting, and competed nationally in financial theory, placed 5th in the nation, and was just completely sold on this idea of working in Wall Street, wearing a suit every day, and that was my life. And then in one moment, that was completely gone, and I couldn't remember what a sentence that I just read. So it was a really tough time, and I was making things work, but I was really unhappy, and so I knew I needed to make a change in my life. I really didn't want my life to be the story of my life, you know. So fortunately, I had a moment where I could drop everything, and I cashed out my 401k and committed to an idea. We bought a food truck and paid the truck off in the first year. We won Best Tacos in Denver the next year, Best Food Truck in Denver the following year, and have had some other successes since then. So that's how it came to be. Just, you know, I made a decision. You know, that was many years of sticking to that decision, and had a good background of business, a good background of food and beverage behind me, but that's how...
The grit.
Yeah.
It took a lot of grit. There a philosophy or a code that you live by in the kitchen?
No, there's probably a bunch, but for me personally, I'm usually struggling with being productive with the brain injury, being fair to myself, putting, you know, reasonable pressure, taking care of myself. And so a lot of times it'll sound silly, but when I'm really struggling, who am I, what am I doing? I know who I am still, because at one point I didn't.
Exactly. It's having, I think, more than anything, I think that what's helped me stabilize. We talked about this right before the panel. Is it's always cute to start a startup, survive. survive it. That's the thing. When the bills come due 6 months after you went out and you partied because you started something up, that's when it becomes real. And I think that ability of remembering who you are, best advice I ever got from one of my mentors was, no money is better than bad money. Don't ever take a customer or a client that is negative in any way that that goes down a path that you don't believe in, that you don't share that code of, you care, right? You have to care. You got to care about this shit. You're not gonna. And if you're taking on dollars with people who don't care, and who just, then you're not going to be at peace with yourself. And you may survive another couple of months, but then you regret every moment that you've taken probably after that. Yeah. So where are you originally from, though?
I'm originally born in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and grew up in Roswell, New Mexico. So a lot of people know Roswell, 50,000 person town, southeast New Mexico. Yeah. My grandmother, my dad is Filipino. My mom is Irish and English. My grandfather fought in the war, in World War II, and my grandmother came over and was a nurse for 25 years. And so all of my aunts and my father were born at different military bases. And so parents were first born in America. Their parents were from the northern islands of the Philippines. On my mom's side, ranchers and cowboys, and I had 6.5, 7 foot uncles, and so just very different backgrounds, ranchers in Texas, and then Filipino immigrants, and raised by my mother. And so when I'd go visit my grandmother, it was a culture shock, and it was very different from the cheeseburgers and enchilada lifestyle that a New Mexican kid gets. And so those clashes often were a lot of where my food comes from, and kind of who I identify as, because learning to become proud of being a Filipino. I was the only one in my city, didn't know anybody else. So it was, all the Hispanics just told me, no, you're Hispanic, bro. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll do that for a while, I'll learn it. I love the culture, thank you for having me.
So Fatima, let's ask you about, becoming, you've been around for like almost, what is that, 2 generations, almost 3 generations. So, but you're a cultural pillar of the community. I mean, in New York, they have Sylvia's. In New Orleans, you have Café Du Monde. So you're basically the Wall Street Cafe became that here in Denver. Tell us what's that like? Like, what did that mean for you and the family?
Being a cultural pillar for us has been one of those things where if you're from Denver and you're Black, you've been to Welton Street Cafe. Culturally, it's important for us to have spaces where people look like us. In Denver. Denver is, we have a small percentage of Black people. And so when you come to a space where it's a Black family that's running it, there's other Black families that are eating here, I can see myself and they can see who we are as well. And there's a presence there. Everything at 5 Points that's Black is not erased. And so that's the important factor, especially when we have travelers. Denver has plenty of tourists. This place is filled with them. And so they come here and they're like, well, where are the Black people at? Like, that is the common thread. And so if you want to find culture, if you want to find yourself, come to Welton Street Cafe. You'll find the connections you need for your community.
It's very true. When I first moved here 20 years ago to Denver, it was it was one of the first places that I actually went to feel that I was at home. I relocated from New York right after 9/11 and came here, and it was where I could feel at home. Because as a person of color, when you're in Denver, and it is a culture shock. It really is. Even still today, it's still that way. So you find your pockets, and I think Walton Street became that. Blaine, what's interesting for you is that you're now on the other side where you're actually growing into becoming a full-on establishment here in Denver. So what's your vision for community here, right? Because you're now in Denver 20 years fast forward, right? 30 years fast forward in a different kind of Denver of when Welton Street Cafe started. So what's your vision for a building?
we're working really hard on the low to have as many people eat chicken adobo as we can, and so we're also partners with Meow Wolf as one of their vendors, and so they've in 1 year we just had their anniversary party. We've done 13,000 pounds of chicken adobo just to them, you know, and so for me, being able to work with a really cool place like Meow Wolf and then feed 13,000 pounds of chicken adobo, which is, you know, expression of honoring my grandmother, love for my grandmother, love for, you know, this thing she shared with me. Filipinos are literally everywhere. Everybody here knows one or two. We're the #2 most populous Asian group in the country, and so we're all over. We really just need to come together and be proud of what we have, support what we have. You know, like the Black community is supporting Welton Street Cafe constantly over the years. And so it's really important for, I think, our culture is just in a different place. And I've fed probably 3 out of 4 Filipinos in Denver, and so it's really just about reaching them, bringing them all together, and then I don't know, seeing where it goes, because that's really where my passion lies, is just reaching them, having them feel like there's a common thread, a common thing that they can share, and then bringing it together. So we have a little longer road to go before we have like a place where we can come together, an identity, and that kind of thing here in Denver, I think.
So it's a good segue into a piece that I like to bring up around culture, and I think every group, you know, ethnic people don't have this on lock. It's just part of who we are. But I think if you look across the spectrum of different cultures that are in Denver, right? So even Caucasian culture has its own uniquenesses, right? There's Southern, right? There's actually Midwestern versus what maybe like the biggest eye opener that I ever had was I had to do a job in North Carolina. And I was staying at a Sheraton, and we were looking for barbecue pit specialists. I had no idea that there were 2 different kinds of barbecue in North Carolina. Oh my God. I asked these 2 guys, they were like brothers. They had been together. We were staying at the same hotel, and over breakfast, we were asking them, hey, do you guys know where I can get some like really good barbecue? Because we want to go interview some guys around Pitt, and one of them liked vinegar based, I forgot what it's called, and the other liked the tomato based, but each one of them had their own fight about which one was the original one. They literally almost came, I thought they were gonna fight. They were literally, and I was like, yo, I'm sorry. Like I apologized, and I was like, I'm not trying to get you guys to argue. He goes, nah, he's always wrong. He always thinks that it is real. So there's that kind of tradition and culture, right, is embedded. It's embedded as us as humans, as tribes, right? What's really interesting is what I love about culture is the traditions about passing it down. And I think both of you talked about that. Blaine, tell me a little bit about that importance that it has for you of taking those recipes from your grandmother, right, or from the Philippines, and being able to bring that to Denver. What does that mean?
So the lumpia and the other recipes that my grandma shared with me represent a feeling, a safe space, a sense of belonging, and a lot of things that are really important and unquantifiable, but are the things that move mountains and make me feel like I can do anything. So she gave me that, you know, day in, day out, and is it the same? No, but it's really just a reflection of my love for her, right? And so beyond, I really love her, what she did for me, the way she made me feel. Do other people feel that based on the spices that I put in there? Not necessarily, but do they know that where it comes from, the love that's behind it, and the purpose behind it? You know, that's always going to be there. We'll always roll them the same way. Everybody's going to know about my grandmother. Whenever you can roll egg rolls to a certain level, you get a little butterfly thing, because butterflies are her favorite. And it's just the little details that make me want to wake up, go to work, and be passionate about what I'm doing. Don't have to be, you know, something that is the same for everybody. As long as it means a great deal to me, and people feel that passion, and and then they can think about their grandmother or whatever that connection is really where I'm going. Everybody's got a grandmother. Everybody has a feeling of what she gave me, what drives my passion, and so that's the thing that I want to communicate through those.
Passing a tradition.
Passing the tradition. So whether people know it or not, I'm front house. So I'm just the messenger. I don't cook. But one of the things that gets passed down and has been passed down from both of my parents is this feeling of taking care and feeding people. I feel like I've turned right into my mother. She's like, they don't have enough money, just feed them anyway, And so it's just like making sure that the people who we service aren't just nexted. You know what I'm saying? That we actually see them and we care about them and we acknowledge them. In terms of the food, because we're West Indies, we will always have a different spin on a Southern cuisine. So it's just like you can get that anywhere in the South, but if you want something that's different and unique, come to Welton Street Cafe and we can change that.
I think what's really interesting, what they bring up, is that I think with traditions, in Blaine's case, it provides vision for him, that he's instilling something from the past that keeps him motivated, right? And I think in your case, it's that passing down, because literally your parents have passed that down to the kids that are working in the kitchen, right? Yeah. So some of it can be mission oriented. We talked about this also right before the session, which has to do with if you're starting up and you've got something a business that you're looking to start up, especially around food, you had better have your mission and your values and your vision on lock.
Yep.
You need to have that on lock. If you are wavering in any way and you're trying to massage the story every time you go from conversation to conversation, you will get lost, right? You will. It's the North Star that navigates every decision that you're going to make. And so you'll want to make sure, and I think in what you're hearing is that the idea of tradition and culture for them serves as that pivot point. It's where everything sort of moves from. It's where they navigate from. So something to just be mindful as you start to embark on.
If I can just jump on there.
Yeah.
My mom's a cardiologist, and in her office, the first thing you saw when you walked in was a big sign that said, regardless of your ability to pay, we'll take care of you. And as a kid, we watched her struggle to pay bills, to do everything. I didn't understand that until as an adult. And so when she said that, really echoes the things that your parents, whatever is instilled in you by your parents, for us, is taken care of.
Yeah. Hey. Okay, we'll try. Yeah. So if you can just speak up a little bit more. If you just speak out.
Okay.
Yeah. Celebrity. Now the fun stuff, right? So you got to start up. You're moving along a little bit. These two found it. Fazima's case, they found it with Food TV, and Blaine found it with Netflix, actually being featured on Netflix. Can you guys talk about celebrity? Like, how'd you get it? What it did for you?
So we made Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. Our premiere was March 6, 2020. Okay? Can you talk about perfect timing? March 16, 2020, the whole world just shuts down. So we had this big premiere party. We packed the restaurant. Guy came in November of 19, and it took us 30 plus years to get that type of recognition. Good things come to those who wait. Okay? If I can leave anything with you, good things come to those who wait, because it took years for us to get this type of recognition. And so we have that, and it was the hardest thing. We had to cook everything on the menu, whether it was featured or not, and it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work, but it was very rewarding. We actually did not really get to see what the show could have done for us because of the pandemic. Like a lot of restaurants that I know who've been featured on Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, they've opened other restaurants and food trucks and all above. Us, we're just still kind of climbing. Our show is still in syndication, so if you search it, it's March 6, 2020. The show is called Mom and Dad, but the location is Utah. It is not Colorado. So we also have a trending Coca-Cola commercial on Twitter. It's 28 seconds. It's really short. And then I have a mural in Rhino, so my face is on 27th and Walnut in this parking lot. And so that really, it makes the patrons feel like they belong to something important as well when they see that you're out there and they see you. So, like I said, any advice, keep doing it because people see you. No matter what lane you're in, people are going to see you.
Wayne?
So 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm throwing my trash out, and somebody drives by, stops, rolls down their window, and goes, "Are you on Netflix?" And that was the first day that it came out. It was June 9th, whatever it was. So it was terrifying from day one for me because I'm a private person. But like Fatima, it was not ideally timed. They came through in June of 2020. Filmed in a restaurant that we had just taken over, and it was a really wild experience, but they were an incredible team. Like they were nominated for 4 Emmys for the show they put together. The guy who's doing audio with me all day won 14 Emmys. So it was just a really talented team of people, and they helped to make it feel easy, but they did a really good job. It was a day-long process at the restaurant, and what I think it's done a great deal for us, day in and day out. Every single day, 2 to 3 people come by one of the restaurants and say, "We saw you on Netflix." And one of the things I can recommend to all the entrepreneurs out there is that now that we live in a digital space, being everywhere, being talked about everywhere, being found everywhere is really important. And building your environment or your sphere of the material that you have out there. Netflix really did a great job of that for us. So if you want to engage in our media and you want to deep dive into who we are, get a story, get a feel, having all of that media out there does a very good job of it. Getting on the news, like she's done, every single news station has a clip of her, and so they can dive in at 2 in the morning and learn about every single thing about the story that you're trying to tell at any time of the day. We're working on some other stuff, some other food programming, television things, and it's as hard as I work in the kitchen these days, it's to get time so that I can work outside of the kitchen to build all of that marketing and the social, I guess, awareness or just being out there,
Yeah.
What was the name of the show?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's called Fresh, Fried, and Crispy, and we're on the Denver episode. You'll find Biker Jim's, Big Mac and Little Lou's Seafood, Buckhorn Exchange, and I really hope I'm not missing anything.
The next theme is one that you'll find, like as a startup founder, if you're on your journey, it's called Crossing the Chasm or the Valley of Death. And you won't know it that you're in it. You typically find out about it after you've crossed it or not. So in the crossing of the chasm moment, it's normally a moment that's in hindsight. So you, as a startup founder, you're going to grow your business, and as you're growing, you're going to reach a point where you go from X to Y. But what helped you to get from X to Y, you're not going to know when you're in the storm, because you're just surviving. You're just trying to get through. It's in hindsight when you look back and you're like, oh shit, like I did this and I got to that, and this was the thing that happened, or that was either the catalyst for me to get there, or it's the magic zone. And every business does this. As you scale and as you start to grow, you encounter these moments, these chasms that you have to cross. And you're not going to know how to do it. But what I wanted to ask you to is, when did you know that you went from X to Y, and you were like, okay, we're ready to make that transition to Y, right? Like we're ready to take the jump to do the next thing. When did you guys know? You're still doing it, like, you know what I mean? You're still trying to do it, but
I guess for me, it got to a point where our restaurant was just like not big enough. I'm servicing people and I'm like, okay, you guys have to stand outside, and the kitchen's like, don't take any more orders. We cannot support what's going on. And it also is the point where people are coming in, they're like, I heard about you, I saw you on Facebook, I saw you on Instagram. So yeah, that marketing piece, that social media piece is huge. So if you don't have a presence there, get one. If you need a personality, get one, because it really helps the business. But yeah, when we were in Welton Street on 27th Street and we're just jam-packed, and I'm like being like directing all the aisles, like, don't stand here, move over there, you know that you've made it and people want to be a part of it. So it's just like when you're in this type of space, it's something you can't explain, you just have to be there. So that for me was like, we finally made it there.
That was the eye opener. For you, Blaine? Was there a moment that sparked in your head and said, this is it, this is time?
In food trucking, you start out so modest that you're basically constantly having that happen. You know, where you go from, I have $300 left, can't pay rent, $700, I have to go buy spices and chips, go for it, or you go out of business. And so that was I had that day, and sold chips, made $700, paid rent. I guess we're back in it, you know. And so then you start having success, and after we won Top Taco, you know, the truck can only be one place at a time. So then you're immediately trying to figure out ways you can replicate your business, and it's pretty limited until you start having brick and mortars. And so we opened our first brick and mortar in October of 2020, and opened our second one this year. But having the vision to go through the times where it sucks really bad and let that speak to you, so that you can have the guidance to make the decision in the future on buying something really expensive or signing a lease on a property. So it's important to go through the really painful time. We went from smoking 3 butts at a time to smoking 13 butts at a time. Now I smoke 80 butts at a time. And that's just the volume that I've had to plan on from day one. So I started out marrying soda bibs at CU Folsom Field at Boulder, and then they asked me to stay. I ran the warehouse, and then I moved to Boulder, and then I was the concession manager, and then did all of the F&B on campus. We used to drive around in Penske trucks and put one kind of hot dog in one truck, one kind of hot dog in another truck, burgers in another truck, and then have 40 temp staff running behind the truck looking like zombies at 2 a.m. It's on CU campus. So the level of scale, you know, where I know how to do things from that background has helped me get into food trucks and seamlessly just put out a lot of volume. So the food truck cost, I don't know, somewhere around $30-something thousand, and the smoker that we just bought costs more than the food truck. The skillet that we bought to make the chicken, we do 500 servings of chicken at a time. And so I've been planning this for 5 years, just knowing that this tiny little pot is not going to be, you know, it's not the plan. The plan is, you know, to grow to scale and save every penny. And so our growth is we did 300 years, 300% of growth, 350 in 2019, 390% growth in 2019, 350% growth in 2020, and so to grow three times over 2 years in a row, that's 1 to 3 to 9. So I went from 1 to 9 in 2 years, and the volume of product, we've gone from 1 case of pork a week to 20 cases a week, and
refrigerating it.
Yeah, I mean, I used to have a shelf at a commissary kitchen, 2 shelves, and now I have 3 walk-in coolers. And so it's being around the things, so you can never be humble enough, because you'll never get an opportunity to be around really awesome things that will influence you later if you're not humble enough to do the bottom man stuff or bottom person stuff at that operation, so that you can get a glimpse of what may be in your future, you know, to help you.
Yeah.
And you came at the best time, because it's just like so many restaurants closed. And so like for us, we did good during the pandemic. A lot of people were like, it's the pandemic, how are you guys surviving? I'm like, we survived. A lot of restaurants closed and we were still open. It was not easy. So making sure that there's a need for whatever you're doing. Make sure, and that's what you just really brought up to me. Like you have a product that people want, you know, and you're selling it and you're doing good. Are we doing challenges right now?
We can. That's what I was
okay.
going to segue to, like challenges, like
Yeah.
what and also recommendations, right?
Yeah. So for me, if you are going into the food industry, I would recommend doing all the research, every single research you can do. If you have not been in restaurant work, get into it, because it's not an easy industry to enter. When I said it took us 30 years to get this type of national recognition, that's real. You know, every day is Monday, meaning that at one point, especially I just got my master's degree in December, and I'm writing a 70-page thesis at the register. People were walking in like, "Are you doing homework?" I said, "Yes, I'm working on my life," you know, at the same time. And I would get up, go to work, go to class, come back to work, you know, go home and be a student, work on the restaurant. Like, it was just never ending that I ended up writing my thesis about working too much, you know, and it was really real. During the pandemic, although we did well, it felt like we were running for our lives, you know, and even right now, I haven't shared with you, I don't think we've shared this on our social media recently, so we are in a temporary location, and this is our last week. So we're open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 11 to 7, and we have a permanent location on 28th. The construction has not started in our permanent location, and we do anticipate 6 months for the build out. So after Saturday, Welton Street Cafe will be temporarily closed again. You know, so March we closed. We were closed for about 7.5 weeks. We got a little temporary spot, and so now we're going back into this piece where we're going to be closed again. And so really, when you don't own the space, if you have a brick and mortar, you're going to be faced with challenges of movement. Moving a restaurant is not easy. The paper trail to move your business is not an easy process. And so, like I was telling Marcus before we started, one of my regulars is not going to be in town this week, and it's our last week. And I feed this woman like every week, every other week. And so she's like, "Well, you guys are going to be closed, so when am I going to see you again?" And I'm like, "I don't know." You know, and she's like, "Well, can I give you a hug?" And I give her a hug, and when she leaves, like, I'm crying. Like, I'm in tears because I'm a part of people's life. You know, I see everybody I service, and I try to remember everybody's name. And so when you're a part of somebody's routine, and I know this meal takes care of more than one meal for her, what happens to her when we're not there? You know what I'm saying? So it's a deeper connection. Like Marcus said, if you don't have values set, if you don't have mission or any of that vision set, you got to know why you're in it. Like, I'm not in it for the paycheck, you know. Yes, I have my needs met, but I'm here to take care of this collective, you know. And so now I'm like, I'm probably gonna have to put up a Facebook post like, who's temporarily hiring? Because I'm probably gonna need some work, because our restaurant has not been started, you know. So all of those things mentally, I'm still grieving the loss of our restaurant. I'm 35 years old. We were in this place 23 years of my life. So moving this place was not easy. And I'm actually happy to be here because I haven't really put myself out there, because this is a death. It's a death of a complete community, and that's the part that I'm still trying to wrap my thoughts and emotions around.
Yeah. Blaine, the biggest challenges that, like, recommendations that you would have around what should people do and what should people not do?
So
You're a startup founder. What do you do? What do you recommend that they do? What do you recommend that they don't do?
you know, there's a lot of stuff out there, and you can inundate. You know, I think getting in a pack of wolves and learning to run with wolves, learning to run with whoever it is you're trying to be, because that's the first step. Is if you can't be, run with those kind of folks, then you can't be those kind of folks. So when I started on food trucks, it's not really So they called me the STD of food trucks in 20 whatever, because I worked on every single food truck. I don't care who you are, I'll wash your dishes, I'll do anything. And so I literally was on every single truck. And so I knew right away, you know, where my operation would be, what I like, what I don't like. But you really just have to get out there, learn in the scene, and then while you're doing that, figure out the thing that you're just undeniably passionate about and willing to go to extreme lengths to be undeniable about. So my grandmother, you know, the love, my grandmother's food, you know, her culture that, you know, that I'm lucky to have part of my life. My mother taught me how to be an entrepreneur. The struggles that she went through, I just want to work as hard as I can just so, because she works so hard, right? So I got like 2 decades more of grinding just to, you know, as a dedication to the work that she put in. And I could go on and on about the things that she's done, you know what I'm saying, and the things that I'm sure that her family's done. And so we feel a responsibility, right, to continue that that work ethic. But being undeniable in your product, being undeniable in your work ethic, being undeniable in your dedication to your product, you know, to your business. You have to show up every single day. You have to show up whenever nobody's going to be there. You got to do it for zero credit. You got to do $0,
Exactly.
negative dollars. Yeah. So during the pandemic, it was March, and I just won Best Food Truck in Denver, and then all of my weddings canceled. And so we were out of business effectively, and so we started selling my smoked carnitas on Instagram. And I would sell about 120 to 200 pounds in like 200 hours. And then the staff that I had that needed work, they would drive all over the Front Range and deliver the carnitas. We would clock 350 miles in a day, and that, you know, pull down like $1,200 or $1,300. And so that was the only way that we could stay in business through March. And then we got creative in May and opened up a restaurant. And we, just like, you know, Weldon Street Cafe, every single time you double down, you commit to the thing that has got you here, you know, the people that have got you here. And during COVID, we opened 2 restaurants. You know, while everybody else is closing, I'm doubling down on the thing that I believe in most. I believe in the communities that got us here, the people that support us, and I don't think COVID will change that, right? And so it did it, and that's how we were able to make it out net positive, and learn, you know, a great deal from that experience. But as far as the things to do, you're not going to know until you're presented with a challenge, because you could hypothetically imagine every single thing in the world, but getting around a good operator with a good ethic, who's going to outwork you every single day, is going to put you in a place that you can't research your way into. I run through probably 5 employees every 2 to 3 months who come in saying, I want to start my own food business. And I go, fine, but you got to give me 3 months, and you're going to learn more than you'll ever learn, but this is the deal, right? I'm going to teach you, but you're going to learn along the way, right? And so you're never going to come across an epiphany. An epiphany will be in grease, underneath blood, underneath sweat. When you're on your knees in your operation wanting to cry and quit, you're not there until you're there. So until you're at that point, you're not really learning anything. So this is an industry I think we're going to go into of back-breaking hard work. You know, you're going to break your fingers scrubbing. You're going to break your back. You're going to work until your brain finds new levels that your body can operate at, and then your brain will be more comfortable, and then you'll come up with more creative ideas, and the whole operation works better. And so I don't go to the gym anymore. I cancel my membership. I just run around with cases of chicken, you know what I mean? You have to live your business, and that's my gym. It's my therapy session.
Yeah.
I think that's so funny.
Yeah.
We have a few minutes before I wanted to open it up to any questions. Does anybody have any questions?
I tell my girls.
With, I'm
what?
sorry, say that again. Eat okra? Eat okra. No.
I never heard of that.
No, haven't heard of it.
It's basically for somewhere you want to find a black-owned restaurant, you go and eat okra, and it tells you local ones if I'm doing something in the city I don't know, and
Oh, really?
eat it that would be.
Like a directory. Yeah,
Oh.
sort of like a directory that you're able to go to.
But you don't have experience with it.
Okay. Well, it's a good resource, something to look at. Okay.
That it is. Yeah.
If I don't know where and I want to find a locally owned something, that's like the quickest way for me to find something.
Okay.
Oh, that's great. Eat okra. That's good to know.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I want to say you really touched me with your connection to your community and your emotion and attachment to them. And I wondered about competition, how the competition made you better. Your direct biggest competitors made you better.
So there's not a lot of black owned restaurants in Denver. I know there's a few that have kind of started to sprinkle around. If you focus on the competitor, you lose sight of who you are. And so I will always tell people, whatever lane you are, know who you are, because there's always going to be a McDonald's and a Burger King, you know. And actually, I know there might be a direct competitor coming like 2 blocks from where we're moving, and this will be a celebrity. And so I'm like, how do I feel about that? But just knowing who you are and being solid in your foundation will help keep those distractions away. Do what you do and do it best. And focus.
Bling? Anything on competition? Your thoughts on it?
If you have competition, it's flattering. So, who knows Machete Tacos in town?
Yeah.
Who knows the James Beard, the most award-winning Mexican chef this year in Denver? Jose Avila. So I started serving tacos on his curb of his restaurant. I do 100 tacos every single Friday. He had every reason to hate my guts. And one day the owners were out there, I was kind of bantering with them. He comes out, the owners try my tacos, and they say, hey, this guy's tacos are better than yours. And it was like the dumbest thing you could ever said. And so Jose goes, whatever. And then he comes out later, brings me every single one of his tacos. We close our window, we sit on the floor, and I eat every single one of his tacos. Right? And so he showed me what competition is. It's respectful community of people who, we're all out here to feed people, and nobody's nobody's fighting for the same mouth. Even when I'm literally on his curb, he still is, going to treat me like that. So times changed. I ended up running the food truck industry for a little while in town. He started a food truck when he left Machete. Jose, whatever you want, buddy. I help you in any way I can. Right, and now he just started La Diabla, best Mexican chef in the country and all this stuff. And so, if I got salty or he got salty or whatever, I wouldn't have this person to look as a guide, I wouldn't have somebody cheering me on, and have a great relationship. And so there's really no competition. Anybody that is a competition or does what you do, they won't last. They won't have the staying power. 21st and Larimer, there's a place that was making my exact top taco winning carnitas, and they are out of business. I can give you a graveyard of names of people who try to do the thing that I just am. And that's what if you just are something, you won't ever have to try. You'll always beat people at that. And and if you focus on beating people, then that's where your energy is going to come from. And one day you won't wake up wanting to beat people. You want to just be happy.
Yeah.
So if what it comes from is innate and pure, you're always going to have lots of energy.
Your visceral reaction to competition is to take out a knife and try to go hunt something, right? It's a visceral reaction because it's threat, right? And psychology teaches you that you're either looking for, right, shelter, right, or is this thing going to eat me? And competition you view as fear, as it's going to eat me. Okay, they need to be quiet. You need that. Now we get it. Hey there, hi in the back. There we go. So competition will do that to you. I think this is the mic. I got to take this off, otherwise. You hold that. So I think it'll always be. It's a visceral thing. The world is gargantuan, And what's more important is that you orient and you navigate yourself to the reason why you created something and the reason why you're delivering it. If you hone in on that, no one can replicate you. They still haven't figured out human cloning yet, right? At least we don't think. So until then, no one's gonna be you. And the best version of the thing you're creating comes from you. If you stick to that, and you just stay in your lane. Don't just let that be like water off your back and just focus on delivering the best thing that you can deliver to this world, right? Your artistry comes from you. That's the thing that people are actually attracted to, right? The thing you're delivering is the utility. If you think of it that way, it changes the dynamics a little bit, and you won't be so hung up about, right, who's coming up behind you. Because when you're doing that, first of all, and last of all, no one should ever be able to outwork you. So if a competitor is delivering a better thing than you're doing, then you may want to think about, is that really the thing you want to be doing? No one should be able to outwork you, period. So, any other questions?
Yeah, just got one for Blaine.
For Blaine?
You mentioned before how you went from 1 to 9 in a short period of time. Any insight in terms of how you funded that accelerated growth? I know it's a simple question, probably with a complicated answer, but any insight would be very appreciated.
Yeah, my background in finance, cash flow management, pipeline management, what you have coming in, what you have going out, and constantly seeing, is this working? Is this how?
I don't know. Is it working for you? No? Just kill it. Kill it. Just kill it. Yeah, kill it.
All right. So, manage your own finances, managing your business finances are fairly similar, and studying finance in school, a lot of classes, a lot of tests, we're just basically managing what you have coming in, what you have going out. But that it's really important to do that. I'm not saying don't do that and just outwork it, but you have to do that to know where that is, where that balance is. With that being said, didn't sleep on Tuesdays and probably slept 2 hours a night for 2 years. So I supplemented all of my labor with myself. My rent was $700 and I'd sell $700 in 2 hours. So the food truck makes money when you're able to do volume and your expenses are really low. For those 2 years, we were socking away cash, and going into the end of the year, opening this new restaurant, we were able to get about $100,000 to spend on opening a new restaurant from just the cash reserves in the business. So free cash flow is the king of everything in a business. How you value it, how you stay alive, how they measure the health of it, and we will go out and sell just to maintain cash flow. I was selling things at wholesale just to make sure cash flow is going through the business. And so cash flow, extremely important. You can't be picking and choosing your battles and paying your bills. You got to go out there whenever you're not going to sell, whenever you may sell, and when you will sell, because you can't predict the future, but your bills will be there. So,
and I think a big piece, because we got to wrap this up, is revenue will always be your best investment dollar. Think of it that way. So, you can beg, borrow, and steal all you want all day, you know what I mean, and trying to look for funding. But funding, if you don't have your operation running at a way in which you can predict, money is like putting gasoline on a fire. It will accelerate the death of a company as much as it can accelerate growth. Money doesn't solve the problem, but by doing it, and I'm a firm believer in doing it because I bootstrap companies, all of my companies, and when you do that, revenue is predictable because you know where you're going to put it. You got to sweat for it, so you're going to think about long and hard about where you're going to put it. If it's free cash that you're getting from somewhere, believe it or not, that thing will bleeds like water. So, can everybody give a round of applause, please, to an incredible panelists? Thank you all for coming. You guys are going to hang around for a little bit? Yeah, so they'll be around for a little while if you guys want to connect with anybody before the next session. Thank you all for coming down. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.